3, 2, 1.
When it comes to Elon Musk, most people picture a genius inventor, a business revolutionary, a man who seems to change the world through sheer stubbornness. He is called a visionary, a dreamer, a savior. But if you dig into the very beginning, the picture starts to fall apart. Because the story of Elon Musk's success is not the story of a hardworking programmer who rose from nothing. It is a story of myths, embellished facts, omissions, and subtle manipulation of what people want to hear. Musk often said that he fled South Africa because he didn't want to support apartheid. It sounds noble, but the truth is that his family left the country quite comfortably, with money and without political pressure. His father, Elon Musk, was the owner of an emerald mine, and Elon grew up surrounded by privileges unavailable to most. He didn't flee from injustice. He moved to where there were more opportunities. And not because he suffered, but because he wanted even more. When he ended up in the United States, he didn't arrive there as a prodigy. He studied at regular universities, without major discoveries, without patents, without achievements. His first serious venture, Zip2, became successful not because of his technologies, but thanks to other people's work and fortunate timing. The code was written by another person. The business was developed through the initiative of others. And when he started acting like a dictator, trying to seize control and push out the co-founders, the board of directors, not enemies, but his own partners, voted to remove him. The first red flag. The first signal, he is not a team player. He is a controller. Then came X.com, a project with ambitions to create an online bank. But again, conflicts, technical errors, chaos within the team. He insisted on using Windows for banking servers, while the engineers begged him to switch to Linux. He once again removed dissenters. He once again interfered in an area he poorly understood. Eventually, the company merged with Confinity, and that merger became the beginning of PayPal. But if you believe the official biography of Musk, PayPal is his creation. Although in reality, he was once again removed from the CEO position. This time, while he was on vacation. He was literally fired behind his back, and he returned to the company already in the role of a guest. 3 times in a row, 3 projects, and each time, removal. Not out of envy, not out of malice, but because he was disruptive. He caused conflict. He couldn't handle it. Yet each time he found a way out. He bought a stake, rewrote the story, created an aura of a hero around himself. People don't remember who built the technology. People remember the one who shouts the loudest that he invented it. This is how the first myth was born, the myth of Musk as an unstoppable genius. Although in reality, his path is not the path of a creator. It is the path of a conqueror of stories that others created. He didn't write code, but called himself a programmer. He didn't lead the team, but called himself a leader. He didn't create the product, but became its face. And here arises the key idea. Musk understood the most important thing earlier than others. In the modern world, what matters most is not what you did, but how you present what you did. He didn't build a company. He built a mythology. And this very skill, manipulating perception, became his true capital. That's where it all began. Not with engineers, not with science, but with a story in which he was not the hero, but the storyteller. And the more people believed in that story, the more power he gained. Not because he earned it, but because we allowed him to take it. When the story of PayPal is told by Elon Musk, it sounds like a legend. A young entrepreneur with an idea of online banking, fighting against the system, defeating the banks, creating a revolutionary product, and selling it for billions. But as with the rest of the projects, the truth about PayPal is not a story of creation, but a story of usurpation. The true creators of PayPal were Max Levchin and Peter Thiel. They were the ones who founded the company Confinity. They were the first to come up with transfers via Palm Pilot. They came up with the idea of sending money by email. It was their code, their architecture, their team. Musk at that time was working on X.com, an online bank that was, to put it mildly, raw and vulnerable. He once again ignored the engineers' opinions, insisted on using Windows, and his product literally collapsed under its own weight. When the two companies merged, Musk didn't become a co-author. He became a conqueror. He imposed his leadership, pushed Thiel out, began pressuring the technical department, and promoted unstable ideas. He wanted to move the entire PayPal system to Windows, despite the fact that the developers on Linux had already ensured security and stability. No one on the team trusted this decision. Everyone knew how it could end. But Elon, as always, was convinced. If he wants it, it will happen. That was when the corporate coup began. While Musk was away on his honeymoon, the team gathered without him. The board of directors, including Peter Thiel and other investors, unanimously voted for his removal. He was taken out quietly, quickly, and without resistance. It was the third time Musk was removed from a leadership position in his own company. And each time, for the same reason, he destroyed more than he created. But the real story doesn't begin with the firing. It begins with what Musk did afterward. Instead of admitting he was unnecessary, he began rewriting reality. In interviews, he started saying that PayPal was his project, that he was the one who invented online money transfers, that without him, nothing would have happened. And people believed it, because the name Elon Musk had already become a brand, and few remembered the real creators. He started calling himself the founder of PayPal in every interview, in every presentation, in every speech, despite the fact that legally it's a lie. Despite the fact that even in the IPO documents, his name is not listed as a key figure. But when you have millions of followers, investments, and charisma, you can rewrite everything, including someone else's work. Max Levchin, in an interview years later, would say a phrase that carried it all: the fatigue, the frustration, the bitterness. I respect Elon for how he thinks, but PayPal is not his story, never was. This chapter is not about fintech, and not about startups. It's about how easy it is to hijack someone else's credit if you have enough media weight. About how Musk once again didn't create, but claimed. And about how his real talent from the very beginning was not technology, but the ability to impose the right narrative on society. That's how the PayPal Mafia was born, a clan of billionaires who emerged from one company. Thiel, Levchin, Hoffman, Reed, Roelof, Botha, all of them built empires. And only Musk, the only one in this story remembered as the main character, despite the fact that he was fired, because he was the first to understand. If you control attention, you can be anyone, even someone you never were. If you believe Elon Musk, then Tesla and SpaceX are the two greatest technological achievements of the 21st century, built against the system. He loves to say he fought bureaucracy, politicians, and industry giants, and won. In reality, it's quite the opposite. He didn't defeat the system. The system funded him, generously, blindly, and irrevocably. Let's start with Tesla. The myth that Musk founded it is one of the most persistent. But in reality, he joined the company after it had already been registered as an investor, and later simply pushed the real founders, Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning, out of the public spotlight. Through court, PR, and presenting himself as a brand man, Musk rewrote this page of history too. By the year 2008, Tesla was on the verge of bankruptcy, accounts empty, production frozen, staff demoralized. That's when Elon managed to convince the US government that his company was the key to the energy future. Through the Green Technology Support Program, Tesla received a $465 million interest-free loan from the Department of Energy. It was a lifeline. Neither investors, nor the market, nor the product would have saved the company. It was the taxpayers who did. Later came new rounds of assistance: electric vehicle subsidies, tax breaks, soft loans, and sales incentive programs. Just one state, Nevada, granted Tesla more than $1.3 billion in tax incentives for building the Gigafactory. In California, the electric car purchase incentive program brought in another $750 million, where Tesla was the largest recipient. All of this was presented as a triumph of business over oil. But in fact, Tesla survived and grew not through car sales, but through policy. Its real profit for years did not come from customers, but from selling regulatory credits, special CO2 emission allowances bought by automakers that couldn't meet environmental standards. In the year 2020, Tesla showed a profit for the first time, $1.6 billion. But $1.58 billion of that came from selling those same green permits. Without this scheme, zero. Without politics, a loss. And SpaceX? The same model, only on an orbital scale. The company has existed since 2002, but it only truly began operating after securing hundreds of contracts with NASA and the Pentagon. In just the past few years, SpaceX has received more than $15 billion from the US budget. Contracts for delivering cargo to the ISS, developing lunar modules, launching satellites, All of this accounted for 90% of its revenue. And this was not a random choice, not a free market, not a competitive victory. In 2014, NASA held a competition for manned missions, in which SpaceX was given the advantage, despite technical problems that were documented in internal reports. Later, Musk began promoting Starlink, satellite internet that, according to him, will save lives in disconnected zones. In Ukraine, this indeed played a role, but a few months later, he stated that he could no longer provide the signal for free and began negotiations with the Pentagon. Today, Starlink is partly funded by the US military budget, which means it is no longer a humanitarian mission, but simply state infrastructure in private hands. Musk uses the language of libertarianism, but survives thanks to the government. His business is not a market revolution. It is privileged existence within the system, with access to resources unavailable to most. And the most paradoxical thing is that by using this, he not only makes money, he attacks the very system that feeds him. More than once, he manipulated the market through his tweets. In 2018, he claimed he would take Tesla private at $420 per share, and that funding was secured. This turned out to be a lie. He was fined $40 million for it, but shareholders lost much more. His own brother, Kimball Musk, sold shares worth $108 million one day before another important tweet, prompting an SEC investigation for signs of insider trading. But there were no consequences. Because Musk understood, as long as you give the system a sense of progress, everything is forgiven. You can lie, manipulate, conceal, omit, and still get the next contract, the next subsidy, the next headline, genius. His companies are not sustained by profit. They are sustained by trust of politicians, investors, society. This is not private business. This is a cult sponsored by the state. And if it collapses, it won't just be investors who suffer. The entire structure he made dependent on himself will suffer. This is the main trap. He creates dependence. He doesn't just build companies. He embeds himself into the very architecture of the future, making it so that without him, nothing works. When Elon Musk bought Twitter for $44 billion, he presented it as a mission for the sake of free speech. He said the platform would become a digital town square, where everyone could speak without fear. But the reality turned out to be much darker. Within just a few months, it became clear that X, the new name for Twitter, was not turning into a stronghold of democracy, but into a powerful tool of censorship, pressure, and Musk's personal influence on politics, international relations, and public opinion. Paradoxically, it was under the pretext of protecting free speech that the most aggressive bans began to occur. Shortly after the deal, it became known that X, at the request of Russian authorities, started restricting access to Ukrainian accounts covering the war. The company explained this as legal reasons, but in fact, it was complying with the Kremlin's demands. Similar cases occurred in India, Turkey, and Singapore, countries where repression against free speech has long been the norm. Formally, Musk continued to speak about principles of openness, but X acted differently, silently deleting posts, accounts, entire communities. This wasn't just a contradiction. It was a signal. The new platform was not about freedom, but about influence. Especially considering that one of the key investors in the Twitter acquisition deal was Prince Al-Walid bin Talal, a representative of the Saudi royal family. His fund invested nearly $2 billion in the company's purchase. And as a result, the platform that declared a fight against censorship ended up partially under the control of a regime where people are imprisoned for decades over a careless tweet. Musk not only did not distance himself from this partnership, he personally thanked the Saudis for their vision. And shortly after the deal, paid content from Saudi government entities began to appear en masse on X. But the most alarming episode occurred in September 2022, when Musk refused to activate the Starlink satellite communication system in the Crimea region, precisely at the moment when Ukrainian forces were planning an attack on the Russian fleet. This refusal paralyzed the operation. Later, Musk himself confirmed in an interview that he did not want to assist in escalating the conflict, and unofficial reports emerged about his contacts with representatives of the Russian authorities. I emphasize, contacts not through the State Department, not through official channels, but directly. After this, a wave of Ukrainian account bans began on X, and even when some were restored, the consequences were already irreversible. Ukrainian authorities directly called Musk's actions sabotaging and betrayal. Against this backdrop, X turned into Musk's personal media shield. The platform began actively banning journalists from the New York Times, BBC, Reuters, anyone who criticized Tesla, SpaceX, or Musk himself. Some accounts were subjected to so-called shadow banning, where their posts suddenly lost reach, and the users themselves didn't know they had been isolated from their audience. Employees inside the company reported that such measures were taken based on personal requests and did not always have a legal basis. A telling case. The episode when Musk, at one event, made a gesture that millions of viewers interpreted as a Nazi salute. The video spread across the internet, but almost immediately X began mass blocking accounts that shared the clip. When the footage appeared on YouTube and Reddit, legal threats started pouring in, citing defamation and distortion of context. This was not just an attempt to protect a reputation. It was digital suffocation of an inconvenient truth. In words, Musk remains a supporter of transparency and open discussion. In practice, he has created a platform where free speech works one way, his way. He openly promotes a far-right agenda, reposts conspiracy theorists, makes memes about mass shootings, and deliberately targets politicians, scientists, and journalists whose views differ from his own. His influence on the information space has become not just global, it has become unchecked. Thus, X is not the Twitter we once knew. It is a tool. Whose tool? A tool of personal influence, pressure, and the construction of a new digital regime, where laws and principles do not define what is allowed. Elon Musk's personal opinion does. After Donald Trump's victory in the 2024 election, it became clear his second term would not simply be a repeat of the first. He was planning to completely restructure the U.S. administrative machine, and for that, he needed unconventional, even dangerous allies. One of them was Elon Musk. Never before had the billionaire held an official government position, but by January 2025, he was appointed head of a new division, the Department of Government Efficiency, abbreviated as D.O.G.E. The name sounded like a joke, but the powers were anything but. Musk received nearly unlimited tools for optimizing government structures, and within just a few weeks began a sweeping purge of the federal apparatus. Under the banners of efficiency and digitalization, a very tangible purge was taking place. More than 30 divisions of the Department of Labor were shut down, including regional offices that monitored mine safety. Employees were fired in batches, often via email, without notice or a transition period. Even those who had maintained critical infrastructure for decades lost their jobs in a matter of hours. Meanwhile, government briefings presented it all as a breakthrough reform with a startup spirit. Musk claimed he was saving taxpayers' money. But in fact, according to Bloomberg's estimates, from January to March 2025, expenses for logistics, contractors, and legal support for D.O.G.E. reforms increased by 57%. The savings turned out to be a fiction, and chaos, a reality. Reports emerged that chains of responsibility were broken in many agencies. Disruptions began in medical assistance systems and environmental monitoring. But the White House called it a painful but necessary transition. At the same time, Musk used his position to advance personal and business goals. For example, his team actively pushed procurement reform, under which government agencies were to give priority to suppliers with high reputations in innovation. This wording allowed lobbying contracts for Tesla and SpaceX, bypassing competitors. By February, it became known that several tenders for supplying electric vehicles to government agencies had been approved directly with Tesla, without open competitions. Moreover, reports began to emerge about the merging of D.O.G.E.'s functions with X's digital services. Internal documents leaked from the administration's office showed that there were plans to synchronize X user IDs with the tax system, supposedly to combat fraud. Under the pretext of digitalization, the state was preparing to transfer part of the control over citizen identification into the hands of a private company. In other words, into the hands of Elon Musk. This caused internal division even among Trump supporters. Some Republican senators openly stated that no businessman should run the government like a startup without oversight. But publicly, Trump continued to defend Musk. At one of the rallies, he said, "Elon just has a bigger brain than all those bureaucrats put together. He does what the others don't have the guts to do." Meanwhile, more and more details began to emerge in the media about the informal nature of D.O.G.E.'s management. Decision-making took place in Telegram chats with investors, in discussions on X, and even through memes that Musk himself posted as announcements of political steps. One former department employee anonymously told CNN, "We had no structure. Everything depended on Elon's mood that day. If he tweeted a meme about government spending in the morning, by evening half the department would be laid off. At the same time, Musk increasingly intervened in public discourse, openly criticizing judges, attacking unions, trolling journalists and politicians, and at times even spreading blatant fakes. He continued to position himself as an anti-establishment reformer, but in reality became the most powerful unelected figure in American politics. No official had so much direct influence on the government apparatus, the economy, and the media sphere at once. By early April, it became known that Musk's tenure in office was officially limited to 130 days, the same as for freelance advisors. The White House was preparing for his departure, although it was already clear he wouldn't disappear completely. A Trump representative stated that Musk would remain an informal strategist and would participate in decision-making, meaning even after stepping down, he would keep the levers, just not sit at the table in the Oval Office. Thus ended this formal period of service, but real influence only grew stronger. Musk turned into a private politician, unburdened by a mandate, accountability, or a system of checks and balances. He retained all the resources: money, media, loyalty from part of the elite, and a direct channel to the President of the United States. After 4 months of official power and a year of unofficial influence, it became clear Musk had crossed the point of no return. His actions began to bring real, measurable consequences, both for himself and for his entire empire. The first alarming signals came from the stock market. Back in January 2025, Tesla shares were trading at $310. By April, they had dropped to $176. It was the largest crash in 3 years. Investors began to panic. Reports for the first quarter showed a decline in sales in Europe by 38%, and in Canada by 41%. The reason? A mass consumer boycott. People refused to buy Tesla electric cars because of the political stance of its owner, his ties to Trump, and the toxicity increasingly associated with the brand. Large corporate clients also began to pull out of partnerships. The French company Veolia terminated its contract for fleet electrification, and the Austrian conglomerate OMV suspended construction of Tesla supercharger stations. Even within the United States, problems began. California, Tesla's primary market, excluded the company from several environmental programs through which Musk had previously received subsidies. The market increasingly perceived him not as an innovator, but as a source of risk. Financial analysts at Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley downgraded their forecasts for Tesla, calling the CEO's erratic behavior a factor of strategic threat. But apparently, Musk himself didn't care. He continued putting on a show on X, posting memes about the stock drop, joking about fake investors, and telling anyone unhappy to sell their shares and go cry into a pillow. Meanwhile, pressure began to mount from another side. The European Union began considering sanctions against Starlink as a system subject to US political influence without independent oversight. Within the Commission, discussions were underway about creating a domestic alternative, and France and Germany suspended talks about connecting their military units to SpaceX satellite communications. At the same time, Canada launched an investigation into violations of antitrust laws, and Norway filed complaints regarding the collection of user data through the Starlink interface, allegedly with support from American intelligence. Musk, in essence, became the face of a new digital colonization. He controlled infrastructure, media, and even government functions, but was bound by no international agreements or standards. Even in Silicon Valley itself, a rollback had begun. Musk was no longer invited to events by Google, Apple, or Microsoft. Partnership programs were being frozen. Investors from Sequoia Capital and Andreessen Horowitz distanced themselves from any initiatives directly linked to him. Startups that had received investments through the XAI fund began losing contracts with universities and foundations. Reputationally, Musk found himself in isolation, and this was the first time in his entire career. But perhaps the most devastating blow was something else. His own audience began to crack. Longtime Tesla fans felt betrayed. People who just a few years ago bought the Model 3 for a future free of oil now saw their money going toward funding far-right propaganda, lobbying for Trump's policies, and suppressing free speech. On Reddit, where Musk was once praised, now every third post was an expose or satire. Even on X, despite censorship, memes began gaining popularity with captions like, "We used to believe in Musk." Now we believe in canceling subscriptions. Ironically, the man who once promised to save humanity from climate catastrophe has, in the eyes of many, become a catalyst for social and political decay. His dream of colonizing Mars now looks like an attempt to escape from Earth, which he himself helped to ruin. He got everything: money, power, influence, and all of it he began to lose. Not suddenly, not all at once, but irreversibly. He is no longer feared, he is avoided. And his voice, once a symbol of progress, now sounds like the echo of a man no one listens to anymore, but who still hasn't realized that the stage is already empty. The question that hovered in the air throughout this story now stands out more sharply than ever. What happens when one person gains power that used to be distributed among the state, corporations, media, and society? What happens when he no longer depends on voters, investors, or the law? We've already begun to see the answer. Elon Musk is not just a billionaire who temporarily became a government official. He is a man who managed to unite in his hands what was never meant to converge: state functions, the private economy, communication infrastructure, and control over public consciousness. He controls a satellite network on which armies depend. He controls one of the largest social platforms where political agendas are shaped. His factories produce cars that drive through the streets of every second country. And all of this without accountability, without balance, without checks. Right now, he holds no formal power, but informally, he remains embedded in every system he himself transformed. He is no longer needed in the White House because the digital White House now exists in his pocket. At any moment, he can unleash a wave of information, disinformation, memes, or slogans, and within 24 hours, change public opinion. Without elections, without debates, just with a single post. And here lies the most terrifying paradox. He cannot be re-elected. He cannot be fired. He cannot be recalled. Because he was appointed by neither the people nor the law. He appointed himself. While some argue whether he is a Democrat or a dictator, Musk acts. He doesn't need ideologies. He uses any that give him leverage. Today he can play the role of a technocrat. Tomorrow, a conservative. The day after, a libertarian. But behind all of it always hides the same thing: the desire to control, not the system, but reality. In human history, there have already been people who strived for this, but they didn't have these tools. They didn't control satellites, they didn't command neural networks, they didn't dictate the world's agenda in real time. They didn't have a million cameras in every car, a microphone in every phone, and an account in every second teenager's pocket. Musk has all of it, and that's why the main question now is not even about him. He has already made his move. The real question is about us. What are we going to do about it? Will we accept that a corporation can be stronger than a state? That a private individual can cancel elections with a single tweet? That algorithms and market logic are more important than law? And if we do nothing, then this moment may become the beginning of a new era, where elections become memes, journalism a joke, and all power is concentrated in the hands of those with more traffic than anyone else. Not because they're smarter, but because we gave it to them. This is how the story of Elon Musk ends. A story not about technology, not about business, not about science, but about a man who proved that in the 21st century, real power is not a position. It is attention, and he learned to control it better than anyone.